So the other day, my wife says to me, "You weren't even listening, were you?" And I said to myself, that's a strange way to start a conversation. I don't know if you're ever like me where you've been accused of not being a great listener. Well, it's one thing I get reminded of constantly. And it's one thing that can be a salesperson's best friend, most effective tool is when we become a better listener, we can make better suggestions and provide better options to our clients. So, how do we become a better listener? Well, one of the challenges we have is as good a tool as it is, whether it's PAS or PL Rater, it kind of forces us into filling out a form, and it turns what should be a conversation or into a interrogation or a transaction. And think about it, when someone comes in for a quote or they call you, you start asking these questions because you pull up PAS or PL Rater and you start asking, what kind of vehicle is it, what year, what make, what model, what kind of driving tickets do you have, etc. Right? We ask these questions, and instead of having a conversation, what we're doing is creating a transaction. So how can we break that habit? How can we get refocused on having a truly focused conversation with a member, which will lead to more sales because we connect to them better? One of the ways you can do that is with a tool we call the Mind Map. Now, if you're taking traditional notes, you don't have a system or something like that, you might have a yellow piece of paper. And on that yellow piece of paper, as people talk, you'll start jotting down information, and you keep jotting it down. And some of you even have a book, right? And you keep filling out pages, and you're like, oh, it's another page. And then you grab another book. You got all this information down there. Now, it's great. You have that. The challenge I've found with that method is when you look at it, don't know what you don't have. And the great thing about the mind map is it's a visual note-taking system. So it helps you not only find what you do have, but it helps you identify what you don't. So if you take a look at this example of the mind map right here, you'll notice it's general areas where you can collect information about your member. Now that might be motivation. What's the reason for them getting a quote today? It's obviously they wanted to. People aren't doing this because they don't want to, right? They're doing it because they willingly want to get a quote. And most people, we know, 9.9 out of 10 are going to say, well, I want to save some money, or I got my bill in, my rate went up. So we've got to be better than that. If that's the only thing we've got, then what PAS and PL Rater turn into is a slot machine. We're going to put all this information in. We're going to pull the lever and I hope a good number comes out. I'll get this sale. If you want to go beyond that, for example, here, the motivation, you might ask a question like, hey, what kind of money were you hoping to save? How much money would you have to save in order to make the switch? And just those extra questions help not only you understand where they're coming from, a lot of times they haven't thought about it either. Hey, in addition to the price, what other factors are important to you, right? So people will always base it on price because, it's easy, right? Something they understand. But liability limits and other factors like an HO3 versus an HO5, those things are complicated, so they don't want to push them to the side. But when we ask better questions, it helps you provide better options for your clients, and it helps your clients and members make a better decision, an educated decision about their insurance. So take a look at this mind map. You'll notice there's a section for motivation, a little bit about information about their family, about their current insurance, some other topics. And as they share, you can focus on listening and then record the information in the appropriate area. And as you do that, you'll notice where you might be a little light, so you can kind of go back and say, hey, let me ask a few more questions. So you and your wife live in this area. What made you live in that area? Tell me a little bit more about your current insurance. What's your insurance agent's name? When's the last time you sat down with them to review your coverage? What's changed in your life since you last time sat down with them? So all of these, what the mind map does is, number one, helps us become a better listener. And number two, it helps us ask better questions. In the number three part, what does it help you be better at? Better closing, because you're able to offer options that are more relevant to that member. All right. So this is one version of the mind map. It's a vertical version here. And here's a second version of the mind map. You'll notice it's more of a horizontal. These have the questions in there, but we've got two formats. One's blank and one's with questions. So you can actually use them side by side. So, okay, you might be looking at me like this is a little bit strange. I kind of have my way. If you want to get outside of your comfort zone, if you're not satisfied with your close ratio, if you'd like to go beyond just using price and you're trying to build value, the mind map is a great way to do that. Here's how I'd suggest you put it into action. I've worked with a lot of agents. My challenge would be do it just once, okay? Your very next quote, you might say, hey, I'm going to do the mind map. And maybe you, to get comfortable with it, do it for your next quote that's on the telephone so you don't have to worry about the member watching you. If it's the member in front of you, just be transparent. Say, hey, I'm going to use this to take some notes. Is that okay? I want to make sure I capture everything, ask the right questions so I can provide the best options to you. So either way, you can do that. But my advice is it's not like you're going to do it every single time. Try it on one. And then if you want to refine the questions you're asking, making sure you're asking the right ones and creating value, you might say every first quote of the day, I'm going to do a mind map just this week or the next 3 days. And that way, you'll start developing the discipline and the habit of asking deeper and better questions. And you can continue to use PL Rater, of course. So try one. Now, if you're saying to yourself, okay, that's a little uncomfortable for me, Bob. Here's my next piece of advice. Take one, and immediately after you've done a quote, okay, you haven't sold a policy yet, take out a blank mind map and fill in everything you know about them on the mind map. And then look at it. Look at what you might have missed. And maybe that will help you on your next quote ask even better questions. So, are you ready to give this a go? You want to get outside of your comfort zone? If you do, 3 things will help you do better. Number 1, you'll be a better listener. Number 2, you're going to ask better questions. And number 3, you're going to have a better close rate. So, it's up to you. Let me know how it goes.